is we're going to now talk about working your sphere of influence. And when we start to talk about working your sphere of influence, the place that I always want to start is this. Is first we're going to go through, before we get to sphere of influence, I want to point out first what makes someone a client. Okay, so when I say we're going to talk about what makes someone a client, what we want to do is not think about what makes someone a client from the standpoint of the sorry. I told the guy, if you can talk to me before 1:30, but then I got to teach a class, and I should have just said, I'll call you at 3 o'clock, because now my brain's still all flustered. So anyway, we're not thinking about what makes someone a client from the standpoint of the division of real estate. So I want to be really clear on that, is what I'm about to talk about in terms of what makes someone a client is not what you learned in real estate school of what the division says. Now, that is a part of it, but I want you to think about it as a client, meaning we're not changing what the division of real estate has said, but I want you to think about it from the standpoint of, for me, you might have a signed agreement, a buyer broker or a listing agreement, but that doesn't mean you're going to get paid. Okay? So for me, when I say a client, for the sake of what we're talking about right now, what I'm talking about is someone that you're going to get paid from working with. So the first thing that has to happen for you to have a client is they have to be, I'm going to write it down as just you, but then I'll tell you, if you're taking notes, I'll tell you how you might want to write it down. So what makes someone a client is that they are committed to working exclusively with you. So for me, the thing that's going to make someone a client is that they are committed to working exclusively with you. So they're committed to working exclusively with you. Now, how do they demonstrate that they are committed to working exclusively with you? By signing an agreement, right? So when they sign an agreement, which is what, from the division standpoint, is what makes someone a client. So from a division perspective, you'd have a client. From my perspective, though, of are you going to get paid from this person, what's going to make them a client is, one, that you have, that they are committed to working exclusively with you. Now, let me ask you this. Is it possible, in fact, the scenario that I just was dealing with, is it possible for somebody to sign an agreement saying they're committed and going to work exclusively with you and not do it?
Well, it's possible.
Yeah, like it's possible. That's kind of what we're dealing with right now is
it's illegal.
That phone call that I was just on. This guy signed an agreement to work with our agent, and now he's saying, I don't want to do it. And so, and it's possible that he would go by without anything taking place with that. So they have to be committed to working exclusively with you. So the flip side of that, is it possible for somebody to have not signed an agreement with you, but still be committed to working with you?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why, to me, I'm saying the first thing that makes somebody a client is that they're committed to working exclusively with you. The way they demonstrate it is by signing a buyer broker or an exclusive right to sell. But it's possible for them to to be committed and not have signed. It's also possible for somebody to have signed but still not be committed. Okay, number 2. I'm going to write it down as need, and then I'll tell you how for your notes to put it. So here's how I would say it, is they have clear and present needs that can be met. So in order for you to have a client, they have to have clear and present needs that can be met. Clear and present needs that can be met. Well, what does that mean? What that means is clear and present, meaning like they know what it is they want. We just went through with a buyer and talked about getting to the 2 or 3 key needs. Well, that means they know what they want. They're clear on it. And it's present. So that's the clear. Present is like you could do it today. Like it's possible. So clear and present needs that can be met. So meaning, again, it's like it can be met. Like Well, you might have somebody who's clear, hey, yeah, I wanna buy this house and this, and I want this and this and this, and I want it for $50,000. Well, they might have clear and present needs, but can that be met? Not in our market, probably. So no, that would be an example of that. The other thing that would fall under clear and present needs that can be met is, are they qualified? Can they qualify? Do they have the cash, or are they qualified to do it? So that's clear and present needs that can be met. So they can qualify, it exists, and they're fine with it. Okay, so that's clear and present needs that can be met. Number three is they're committed to buying or selling now. So that's the next thing that is going to happen, is they have to be committed to buying or selling now. They have to be committed to buying or selling now. Okay, now does not mean tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So now, when I say they have to be committed to buying now, what I mean is they have clear and present needs that can be met. When we find that property, they'll pull the trigger. If it's a seller, they have clear and present needs that can be met. We get an offer in that meets their needs, they will do it. So an example of not now would be somebody who's like, yeah, if you find this and this and this and this in a property, and then I get this settlement that I'm waiting on, then I'm going to do it. Well, that wouldn't be now, because they have to wait for this settlement. Or somebody who says, yeah, we want to do da-da-da-da-da next summer. Okay, well, that's not now. Like, now doesn't mean they have to act now. It just means they could be very specific on these clear and present needs. And you might say, okay, great, I know what you're looking for, but they only come up on like maybe a cabin or something in a certain area. Well, they only come on the market 2 or 3 times a year. So the question is, when it does come on the market, are you ready to act? So it doesn't have to be tomorrow. It just means once we find what it is you're looking for, you're not going to say, oh, well, we just got to wait. Like that's what I mean by now. So now doesn't have to be tomorrow or next week or even next month. Now is just, hey, whatever it is that you want, once it shows up, you're ready to do it, okay? And then number 4 is, I'm gonna write it down as tethered, is the client has to, and number 4 is more about managing your clients. Number 4 is they have to be tethered. And the way that we tether a client to us is through appointments. The way that we tether a client to us is through appointments, okay? So we tether our client to us by setting and having an appointment. So let me say it a different way. You can't have a client without an appointment. You can't have a client without an appointment. So what that means is this. Every time you meet with a client, when you're done with that meeting, you need to schedule the next appointment. That's basically what that means, is if I have a client, I should always have an appointment scheduled with them. In fact, I would say, here's what I would say. So I know I got this stupid call still fresh on my mind, but if you always have an appointment with a client, like if you never leave an appointment with a client without scheduling the next appointment, you'll never lose a client. So even though I don't think our agent necessarily did anything wrong on this, I would say that if she had scheduled an appointment with the guy, we probably wouldn't be having the issue that we're having. Meaning like, hey, I need to leave, and let's schedule a time to meet up again. Like, probably wouldn't have had a problem. Not 100% true. But so think of it as tethered is how we manage our clients. So the first 3 is what would make somebody a client. The last one is, how do I manage my client? Okay? Any questions on that? And I'll try to keep an eye on the chat box, Jeff, so if you do have a question, I'll be able to see it. But since you can't unmute, any questions? He can't unmute, so it's only you. Fernando's not there yet. Any questions?
No.
Okay, next then. So the next one is what we would call a prospect. Or you could actually even think of this prospect as being a lead. So these are your leads, okay? Prospects or leads. Think of it this way. So a client has to have these things in order to be a client. A prospect, what makes someone a prospect is that they are missing one or more of these four things. So here's how I define it. Now again, I'm going to be clear. From the division's perspective, once you sign a buyer broker or an exclusive right to sell, they're your client. But from the perspective of me as a coach or a trainer and saying you're going to get paid, I would say if you're missing one out of these four, if you're missing any one out of these four, you don't have a client. Now again, from the division's perspective, don't ever show up to a meeting with the division and go, well, I was in a class once that Russ told me that if they were missing one of these other things that they weren't a client, so I didn't think I had a client. Like, I say that somewhat joking, but I actually did one time have an agent, not on this, but something else. I had somebody that met with the division and they said to the division, well, I would go to Russ's trainings, but my desk was at this other office, and so I didn't know who my broker was. So they tried to say, well, I didn't know who my broker was. And because at that point in the training program, we had a separate office that if they were new, they showed up in I had an office for these agents, but then they were housed out of different offices. And so the division came back to us and was like, hey, their license has to be wherever they're sitting. Okay, great. So we put their licenses out there. It was no big deal. But I just don't want to face that again and be like, well, I was in a class once and Russ said even if I didn't have all these, I didn't have a client. No, you still have a client from the division. But from the standpoint of are you going to get paid, if you're missing one of these four things, then I would say you don't have a client, you have a prospect. In fact, I ought to just change the name of this from client. I don't know what though. I should change it to something else. Then I would never have to worry. But I'm emphasizing this so much so that if somebody ever does try to go say, well, Russ, in this class, blah, blah, I can be like, yeah, let's go watch the class. Listen to how many times I said, they're still a client. But from the standpoint of you getting paid, they're not a client, okay? So a prospect is missing one or more of these. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's say that you have somebody who's committed to, well, actually, you don't know if they're committed to working exclusively with you. They have clear and present needs that can be met. They're ready to go now, and you are tethered to them, but you don't know if they're committed to working with you. So you might have an appointment. You've got an appointment. They're ready to go now. They have clear and present needs that can be met, but they haven't signed a buyer broker. For sure, they're a prospect. But because it's possible that they have clear and present needs that can be met, they're ready to go now, and you have an appointment and they'll go buy something with somebody else or list their home with somebody else. That's part of why I say if they're not committed to working exclusively with you is really what it is. Okay. Now, maybe they're committed to working exclusively with you. They have clear and present needs that can be met, or let's say they don't. They're ready to go now, but they just don't know if they can qualify or whatever, and you have an appointment. I would still say they're a prospect, even though, again, from the division, they're a client, but they're a prospect here because you're missing one of these. So any of these, if you have clear and present, they're committed to working exclusively with you, clear and present needs that can be met, they're ready to go now, but you don't have an appointment, I would say you got a prospect because you are missing one of these. So here's the question. So a prospect is missing one or more of these. So how would we manage them if that was the one we're missing? If we're missing an appointment with this person, so now from my perspective of what I'm teaching you, they're not a prospect. They're not a client, they're a prospect. So what would we need to do in this scenario? Because we don't have an appointment with them. They fit everything else, but we don't have an appointment. So from how I'm explaining this, you don't have a client, you have a prospect. So what would we do? How would we manage them?
Make an appointment,
Make an appointment. So how are we going to do that?
call them.
Okay, good. So we should call them how often until they set an appointment?
A couple of times a week.
Yeah, so I would say minimum So you need to have on a prospect, you should have contact 1 time per week until, so this is the key on this. You should have contact with them once a week until they either become a client, they become SOI over here, what we'll talk about, or you drop them. Or you just flat out drop them. So, with a prospect, you're gonna have contact with them once a week until they either become a client or they become part of your SOI, so I'll put that up here. They become part of your SOI, or you drop them. Now, so think of it this way. When you are prospecting, so knocking on doors, calling people, all of that kind of stuff, any prospecting you are doing, what you're trying to do is set an appointment with the people so that you can find out if they will commit to working exclusively with you, have clear and present needs that can be met, and if they're ready to go now. That's the whole point of prospecting or lead follow-up. The whole reason we're doing it is to try to get a client. But now remember I told you that this afternoon is like the culmination of everything we've been talking about? This is why. Because remember, I talked about prospecting on 2 parallel tracks. We need to be on 2 parallel tracks that we're prospecting. Well, this is what I mean, is I'm prospecting, trying to get somebody to become a client. If they're not, that was the hunter. If they're not, then I want to move them over to my SOI for that future, or this is where they're going to become the farmer, and then I'm going to work with them differently over here. So here's what I guess I want you to see. With a client, you should always have an appointment. You should never leave an appointment without scheduling the next appointment. With a prospect, you should be staying in touch with them once a week until they become a client, until they go over to your SOI or you drop them. Okay? So, the rest of what we're going to talk about today is SOI. So what's the way to work and manage this? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, so the next piece of this then. So now, what I'm going to show you next is, I keep thinking that, I can't tell if that, oh yeah, okay. I keep thinking, did he type a question? But it's not, it's something else on the screen, but I keep looking like it. Okay, so, what we're going to do next is I want to show you that this process that we are going to go through and talk about now is, of everything we've talked about, this is the one thing that I will tell you that I will guarantee you it will work. And the reason I can guarantee you that it will work is because it's a math problem, not a people problem. And that will make sense in just a little bit here. But working your sphere of influence is not a people management problem. Even though that's the way most agents think of it that way, is it's a people management problem. It's not. It's actually a math problem. And when you understand the math of it, then you're going to see. In fact, what I will tell you, here's my frustration. Let me actually tell you my frustration. By the time we're done in the next hour here, I'm going to give you 4 protocols, 4 things that you got to do with your SOI. And I'm telling you right now, it will work. It is 100% guaranteed to work because it's a math problem. And you're going to leave here, when you leave here, you're going to see this and be like, I can see that would work. I can see why. You're going to understand. It will work. And you're going to be like, it makes sense. I can see it would work. Here's my frustration is I have been training this now for about 20 years, and I get frustrated with how few people actually do it. Now, some do. Like, I don't want to say nobody does, because some do go do it. And in fact, for 20 years, I have said this. If you will do what I'm going to show you, 6 to 9 months from now, you will be on track to making over $250,000 a year. If you will do it, it will work. The problem is people don't go do it. And like I said, I train it, and the people who go do this will make in excess of that. And I'll show you and tell you a story about an agent who I think does it the best. And she was working part-time in real estate, 20 hours a week. Now, when I say that though, she hired her sister to work the other 20 hours. So it's like she was working a full-time job, but she would only do 20 hours and she would have her sister do the other 20 hours or more. Maybe they each did 30, I don't know. But she was more of a stay-at-home mom. She had young kids. This was 20 years ago, so now she doesn't have young kids anymore. But I ran into her 4 or 5 years ago at an event, and I said, "Do you still do this?" And she said, "Of course. Like, why would I not?" And I will tell you that back then, following this process, and now granted, this was 20-ish, or not quite 20 years, probably less than that, but 18 years ago, 17, I don't know, somewhere in that range. She was making $300,000 a year doing this. Now, if you took today's prices, that's going to be $600,000 or $700,000 a year. That she, same number of houses. So it works, and I've got a number of agents who do it, and it works. But I get frustrated how many don't. And so what I always tell people, and I'll tell you too this as well. I sometimes won't make you guys do this, but there were times that I would say to people in the class, every one of you get your phone out and then go to your calendar and go to the calendar from 9 months from today. And I would say, put in your calendar to call me 9 months from today, and then either tell me, I did the 4 things you said and it worked, or call me in 9 months from today and tell me I didn't do those things and it didn't work. I have yet, or call me and say I did them all and it didn't work. I have yet to have anyone ever call me and say I did it and it didn't work. Now, here's the funny thing is, I have had a couple of people call me. So 9 months from today, I will get a call, I might not from you guys, hopefully, but I would get a phone call 9 months after the training. And I had an agent that was like, "Hey, Russ, I'm calling you and I don't really know why I'm calling you." And I said, "Okay, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, my calendar popped up, call Russ, so I'm calling you, but I don't know why." And I said, "Oh, I know why. You were in a training with me." I said, "I bet if you look back, you were in a training with me 9 months ago from today. And in that training, I told you to put it in there. So let me ask you a question. Did you do the 4 things that I taught you?" "No." "Well, so did you make over $250,000 in real estate last year?" "No." "Oh, interesting." So I'm telling you, it will work. And to the point that I say, call me. I have yet to have anybody call me and say, I did everything you said. Usually what happens is this: 9 months from today, it pops up on your calendar and the person realizes, if they made a note of why they were calling, and they go, "Yeah, I didn't do it, I'm not gonna call them." And then they don't call me. So just know that I have no concern of saying to you, go do it. And then in 9 months from today, you'll either call one of 3 things. You'll either call me and say I did it and you were right and it's working. You'll call me and say I didn't do it, which you probably won't call me if that's the case, but you'll call me and say I didn't do it and it didn't work. Or you just won't call me because you'll see it and be like, "Yeah, I didn't do it." I seriously want people to call me, because I would love for you to call me, because I do like hearing from the ones that are like, "Yeah, I did what you said and you're right, I'm on track for that." Which, by the way, actually, I have just started, and I am, because of my frustration on this and because of how much I know it works and how many people that I have trained in it that get excited and leave here excited about it and we're like, "Yeah, it's going to work." And then they don't do it, is I actually am going to start offering some coaching for money, obviously, but some coaching. Oh, hang on one sec. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, I've decided I'm going to start doing a 1-year coaching for people who have come through this and see it and learn it and are like, and my experience, I know what's going to happen is I'm going to have like you guys sitting here in class and I'm going to be teaching it and you're going to get excited about it and you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to go do it. And then what I hope is 9 months from today, if you did it, which is great, that you'll call me and say I did it. If 9 months from now you didn't do it, that you'll call me and be like, hey, you were right. Like I needed somebody to hold me accountable for it. So anyway, would love to, that's my plan is because I just know it will work. It's just the problem is people start to do what I teach and then they stop. So here's what it looks like. So let me show you why I say that it's 6 to 9 months. And again, I'm going to tie all this together to everything we've been talking about. So you'll see how all of this fits and comes together. So this black line here is going to, and I've shown you this earlier in the week, but this black line here represents half of a bell curve or the learning curve. Well, what this process, part of what I'm showing you now is my belief as to why most agents don't. They get excited about it and then don't do it. I'm going to show you why. So, and I'm hoping, I've only recently, in the last couple of years, started to implement this part of it, of explaining this piece of it, thinking, well, maybe if the agents understand this, they'll still do it, okay? So this is what it's going to look like. Now, let me actually even tell you, this learning curve or this line, this black line that I have drawn up there, also could represent how bamboo grows. Now, do you guys know, I guess I'll really just ask you because Jeff can't unmute. Do you know how what do you know about how bamboo grows?
It grows underneath the ground. You can't see it
Good.
growing.
For how long?
All of a sudden it shoots up.
Good, you're right, how
For
long?
like years.
Yeah, it's 4 years. For 4 years, now good news is, what I'm teaching you in is not gonna take 4 years. It might take 4 months, but it's not gonna take 4 years. But what happens, you plant bamboo, it appears to do nothing. And the reason I say this is I'll come back to this with your SOI as well. It appears like nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden it grows 100 feet or 90 feet in like 3 weeks. Well, what I'm teaching you in today is, think of it, it's the reason I believe most people don't do it is they leave here excited saying, I'm gonna do these 4 things. But it is going to appear like nothing's happening for the first little while. But once it takes off like this, which is where I'm telling you that's gonna, to get to this point, is gonna be 6 to 9 months. Now again, I'll show you why that is in a second. But it's gonna take 6 to 9 months to get to where it's like, okay, when I say it's guaranteed to work, I'm saying from this point on is when I will tell you you could make over $250,000 a year starting here. So I'm not necessarily saying starting today that a year from now you'll be at 250, but 6 to 9 months from now, that next year. So in 18 months-ish from now, and again, I'm not saying you will make $0, but it might be that you don't earn any income from the SOI the way I'm showing, which this is, I don't actually think this is even true, but we'll just say that it might be 3 to 4, well, let's say 5, 3 to 5 months that you have to do this process and feel like it's not working. But then all of a sudden, what you're gonna see is all of a sudden it's gonna go from like, it doesn't feel like it's working to, I got a ton of business. So that is how it works, okay? Now, let me explain, let me tie it together of why. Remember when we talked about the buyer and seller cycle and I told you that percolation, information gathering, and active phase? How long does that usually take? 6 to 9 months. So the reason this is gonna take a little bit of time before you really start to reap the rewards off of this is because to some extent, depending on who you're gonna put into your sphere of influence, depending on who that is, might take a little while. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of how to get people in there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I first want to just start with and make sure you understand that this process is going to take us some time. So what I don't want you to do is leave here thinking like, I'm going to get 5 deals next month. You still might, but I just want to make sure you understand that it could feel like, hey, I've been doing everything Russ said for 3 months or 5 months, and nothing's happening. But just like bamboo, which by the way, why does it take 4 years before it shoots up? Do you know what's going on?
The roots are growing.
Yeah, it's putting its root system in place to enable it to shoot up 90 feet in 3 weeks. Well, that's what's going on with this, is your root structure is getting put in place during this little while. So it feels like nothing's happening, but there's stuff happening under the surface that you're just not aware of yet. And if you keep doing it, it's going to work. If you don't, then it drops off. Okay, so with that, let's go through and talk about protocol number 1. So I'm going to give you 4 protocols. And the reason I call them protocols instead of rules or laws or conditions is I want you to think of this like an experiment in a laboratory or something. Of like, there are protocols that are in place, and if you'll follow the protocols, it will work. Hopefully I've emphasized that enough. It will work. Okay, so number 1, the first thing that has to happen you know what, actually, before I do that, there's one other piece I gotta do up here. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so, well, no, I'll do this first, then we'll come back to that. Okay, so the first thing that has to happen is your sphere of influence has to be a closed system. Okay, it's got to be a closed system. And what that means, I'm going to show you here in a second. We're going to spend a bit of time on this. What that means is that it has to be fixed in size, which this is one of the 4 protocols, but one of the reasons that this works is because of it being, this is where most agents mess up, this piece of it. Now, they might mess up the other pieces too, but more than anything, most agents screw up this whole thing because they treat it as an open system instead of a closed system. And what makes it a closed system is it's fixed in size. And what I'm going to tell you today is the number that it needs to be fixed in size is 200. Okay? Now, I'll explain, because you can change that number either up or down later if you decide to. But for right now, just know it's a closed system. And what makes it a closed system is that it's fixed in size. The fixed in size is saying it has to be 200 people. Can't be 199, can't be 201. Has to be 200. That's what's going to make this work. One of the things, a big part of what makes it work. Now, let me show you what happens in an open system, okay? In an open system, if I were to just get a map, so if I pulled up a map and I just were to take that map and I drew a circle on that map. Now, it would have to be a pretty large circle in order for this to play out this way. But if I drew, and when I say a large circle, let's say maybe half of Salt Lake County or maybe even all of Salt Lake County. I don't know that it needs to be that big as all of Salt Lake County, but let's just say a significant amount of Salt Lake County. If I were to draw a map in that area, and for sure, if we just said across the country, if you looked at across the country, what percentage of people are in the process of buying or selling at any given moment? Any guesses?
5%.
Close. 7% actually is what it is. Now, actually, let me take that a step further. According to the Census Bureau, now I haven't looked the last couple of years, but I used to look pretty much every year. And what I found is similar to when I showed you guys that NAR survey. It doesn't change that much per year, a little bit here and there. Last time I checked the Census Bureau, the number of people who move it per year, or the percentage of people that move every year was 12%. But that includes renters. So if you factor out the renters, we get to 7% basically. So 7% of the population is in flux at any given moment, okay? So what that looks like is something like this. And in fact, this is now going to be one of those power comes out of telling the truth things. And you're going to hear this from people, and it's actually true what they're saying-ish. It's pretty true, kind of true, but it's not it makes it sound better than it is. Let me say it that way. So what that means is if 7% of the population is in flux, and I had 100 people that I talked to, how many transactions, how many transactions would that be? if 7% of the population is in the process of buying or selling?
7.
So typically we say 7, but it's actually 14. Now the reason is because when that's why I said transactions, not houses. If I said houses, would be 7. But because there's a buy side and a sell side to every home that sells, is why it's 14. Does that make sense? So there are out of every 100 people you talk to, based on this, there are 14 potential transactions from those 100 people. Now, when I first started as an agent, my manager told me this: if you talk to 100 people, you'll get 10 leads and should get 1 transaction from those 10 leads. Which that sounds pretty good. Like that sounds not bad. And where I think this comes from is the idea of either 7 or 14, but if you talk to 100, like it just sounds better to say, for every 100 people you talk to, you could get 10 leads, instead of every 100 people, there are 14 leads available, and you could get 1.4 transactions. Like I think that what people have done over time is just gone to, for every 100 people you talk to, you should get 10 leads, and for every 10 leads, you should get a transaction. Which, that doesn't sound bad, right? Sounds okay. Especially for me, when I first started, remember I was doing 50 contacts a day. So if this was true, then I was doing 50 a day, which would be 250 contacts every week. And if we use these numbers, I should have gotten 25 leads every week, and then done 2.5 transactions every week. And even if we rounded that down to 2 and said for 52 weeks in a year, I should have done 100 transactions. But that is not what happened. And so that's why I say this sounds good, but it sounds good unless you really understand statistics. So we're going to do a small statistics class here, and that makes it sound worse than it is. But if this is true, that 7% of the population is in the process of buying or selling, then what that would mean is this: that the odds when you talk to somebody are 93 to 7. Well, here's the problem. When managers, trainers say, if you talk to 100 people, you'll get 10 leads and that's 1 transaction. So basically a 10 to 1. So what that means is, what they're saying is, if I go talk to one person, well, let me rephrase that. The way that most people understand this, when you say, for every 100 people, you should get 10 leads and get 1 transaction, which is close to what this is, like this 93 to 7, like it's a little worse than this, but not much. But when you look at that and you go, okay, well, if I talk to 100 people, 7 of those people are going to be doing something and 93 are not. But that's not what this says, just so you know. That's not what it says. But people think that, because what they think is, well, then if I talk to 3 people and they all tell me no, I only got to talk to 7 more and I'll get a lead, right? If it's 10 to 1. So if I go like this and I talk to 9 people, well, then the next person I should talk to should be a deal. But that's not the way statistics work. So instead, let me show you this way. Because really what this says is this. What this really is saying is, every person you talk to, there is a 93% chance they're going to tell you no, and a 7% chance they're going to tell you yes. So let me show you what I mean by that. So I brought with me today this dice, or die, I guess. And how many sides to this?
8.
No, 6.
6.
Usually I tell a joke. You're going to now be one of my jokes, because, well, not exactly. But I one time said to some agents, I'm like, how many sides is this? They said 6. And I said, pick a number. And they said 7. And I'm like, no, you got to pick a number between 1 and 6. So anyway, so yeah, there's 6 sides to this dice, right? So pick a number, not 8 or 7.
5.
So 5. So now let me ask you the question. What are the odds that I'm going to roll a 5 right now? 1 out of 6, right? So 1 out of every 6 times I roll this, it should be a 5 if that's true. So now let's see what happens. Let's see how many times I have to roll it to get a 5. This is not a loaded dice, and that's why I let you choose the number. Okay, so there's 1, and we got a 1. So I'll repeat to you what we're getting, Jeff. So there's a 6. We've rolled it twice. There's a 4, rolled it 3 times. There's a 1, rolled it 4 times. There's a 3, rolled it 5 times. So that means right now I'm gonna roll a 5, right? Here we go.
How it works.
What the heck? I got a 4. So now let's keep going. So there's 6 times, 7, 8. I love it when it does this. 9. That's where I get my squats in for the day. 10. Oh, got 11. It almost didn't even. So, okay, so it took me 11 rolls to get a 5. But wait, I thought the odds were 1 out of 6, so I should have actually almost had 2 rolls. Like, let's just see, maybe it'll balance out. Nope, there's 12 rolls. So I rolled it 12 times and I got 1 5. So what's the problem? That's not, you guys said it was 1 out of 6. Well, here's why. What are the odds that I'm going to get a 5 when I roll it? 1 out of 6. Okay, so I roll it and I don't get a 5. Now what are the odds? 1 out of 6. See, that's the problem. When we hear this, we think every time we do it, the odds are going to get better. But that's what you just saw, is the odds don't get better. Now, there is an exception to this, and I'll mention it. We're not going to get into it. But there's an exception to this. The odds do not get better based on the number of times I roll it. It is the odds are 1 out of 6 every time I drop this thing. They don't get better. Now, the exception to that is what we would call regression towards the mean. So what that basically means is the more times I roll it and don't get a 5, there is going to be like a greater chance that the 5 comes up, is what the regression towards the mean means. But that's way deeper than we want to get today. For the sake of real estate, let me say it this way. Basically what it means is this. That regression towards the mean says, I just rolled it 12 times and we only got 1, so we were 1 out of 12. If I rolled that die 1,000,000 times, how many times would the 5 come up? Well, if I rolled it 1,000,000 times, it probably is going to be something like 1 point something out of 6, or it's going to be 0.9 something out of 6. If I rolled it 1,000,000 times. That's the idea of regression towards the mean, is like, it's going to balance out at some point. But I'm even still saying, even at 1,000,000 times, it's not going to be exactly 1 to 6. It's going to have come up a little more than 1 to 6 or a little less than 1 to 6. Now, that's great. If you want to go out and make 1,000,000 contacts in real estate to get this, like I would probably be willing to say, if you go do 1,000,000 contacts in real estate, you probably will get to this. The question is, how many years is it going to take you to get to that point of being able to get to 1,000,000 contacts? I mean, I don't even want to do the math to say if I did 50 a day. Like, it's going to take years and years before you could get to that. So the point is, this is an open system. This is what I'm showing you, is in an open system, the odds don't get better based on the number of times you do it. In an open system. Now, watch this. Let me show you what happens in a closed system. So now, we're going to do the same thing, only this time, I've got these stickers. And this time, now keep in mind, this is my game. So because it's my game, I get to decide the rules. And because doing the way you're going to do real estate is your business, you get to decide the rules of how you're going to operate your business. So you can do this in real estate, not exactly the way I'm going to show you right now, but I'll show you how you do it in real estate. So here's the rules of the game. I'm going to do this again, only this time I'm going to roll the dice, and every time I get a number that's not a 6, I'm going to put a sticker on it. And as soon as I put a sticker on it, if I roll and the sticker shows up, the rule of the game is I get a free throw. So I don't count, that one doesn't count as a roll. Does that make sense? Okay, so now let's see what happens. Watch what happens. Okay, we're going to see how many times I have to roll it to get a 5. So there's a 3. So now I'm going to put a sticker on it, and if the 3 comes up again, I get a free throw. It does not count as a roll. So I'll show you.
Your odds are 1 out of 5.
So yeah, now all of a sudden our odds are 1 out of 5. Good. So there is the 5. So look at that. Only had to roll it 2 times. We were 50-50. Let's see what happens this time. There's a 4. So I'm going to take a sticker, put it on. So now odds are 1 out of 4, really. So free throw doesn't count. So we've only rolled it once. Now, remember, nope, free throw, so we've still only rolled it once. Free throw. Man, that 3 and 4 want to keep coming up, huh? 2. Okay, so now I've rolled it 3 times. What's that? What number did I just have?
2.
Oh, 2. Okay. I thought I said 3. So I've rolled it 3 times. Now the odds are 1 out of 3. Because there's a 5. So I rolled it 3 times. So the first time I rolled it once to get a 5. Twice to get a 5, sorry. Twice to get a 5. This time I rolled it 3 times to get a 5. Let's see what happens if we keep going. Free throw. 5. Okay, do it again. So we only had to roll it once that time. There's a 1. So now I'm going to put a sticker on the 1. There's a 6. So now I'm going to put a sticker on the 6. So now everything is covered except for the 5. So now what's going to happen? I either get a 5 or a free throw. So now I win the game every time. Whoop, there you go, 1 roll. See, from now on, it's 1 to 1. I either get a free throw or I get a 5. Get a free throw, get a 5. How would you like to do real estate that way? Well, this is how you do it that way. Because it's your game, you get to decide the rules, you get to decide how it goes. So, what you're going to decide is, I'm not going to work in an open system. This is an open system, okay? In an open system, the odds don't change. But in a closed system, the more you do it, the better the odds go. Which is why I say to you, at first it's going to feel like nothing's happening. Because you're getting the root system in place, and you're just no different that I had to start out with odds being 1 out of 6. So you might start out with the odds being 93 to 7 against you. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just, well, in fact, actually, let's do it now. Let me show you what it looks like. So here's what I'm going to do. Now, remember that I said that you have to have 200 people, right? For the sake of what, to make this easy, let me see if, I'm going to hope this green marker works because I kind of need a green one. I had a green one, but then it wasn't working. Well, kind of works, but not very well. Maybe I'll pull the one out of the garbage and see if I can make it work. We'll see if this green that I threw away, which luckily there's nothing else in there besides markers and a can. Ah, dang. Got even worse since I threw it away. Oh, close. All right, we're going to pretend then, okay? So for the sake of what we're doing today, we're going to pretend that blue is green, okay? And the only reason I say green is because money represents green, so, but we'll just do 50 blue. So we'll say 50 blue. So we're going to say you got 50 blue, 50 red, which again, pretend it's green. So we're going to say I've got 100 people in here. Now, let me explain this because sometimes people get a little confused on this part. We assume every person that we're putting in here is green, or blue in this case. We're going to assume all 100 are that. But if you actually had a crystal ball, so like every time you get a lead, you assume they're either going to buy or sell, right? I mean, if you didn't, why would you keep them as a lead? So you add, every person you add, you assume is going to be green, or in this case, blue. Meaning I'm going to get paid from them. But if you had a crystal ball and could see into the future, you would find out some of them are not green or blue. They're red. And red represents somebody who's not going to buy or sell with you. Now, there are times that people are gonna say they will, but then they won't. Now, so, again, just to make sure, 200 is the number. I'm only using 100 just to keep the math simple. And here's what I mean by that. So what are the odds that you have in here? Well, you got 50% red and 50% blue, meaning blue is going to do something with you real estate related. Now, like I said, you would probably say, well, why would I keep any red? Well, you don't know that they're red, but we're going to pretend you had a crystal ball and could see. You would figure out 50 are red, 50 are blue. And now, just for the sake of time, I could have started this at, out of the 100, 93 are red and 7 are blue, like if we wanted to do that. And you'll see that the math would still work. It's just, it would take me, I would have to go through a lot more math to get to where I'm trying to get you to, okay? Because what's more important to me is that you see to understand the concept of why a closed system is the magic, okay? So watch this. Let's say that I have 150 and 50, okay? I go prospecting, so I'm working my whatever, I'm calling internet leads, I'm door knocking, I'm for sale by owners, I don't care what it is. But let's say that I capture 10 leads. Now, let's say in a week or a month, I get 10 leads. If I got 10 leads, how many of those are gonna end up doing something real estate related, would you guess? Like, not all of them, obviously.
One.
One? Okay, and we could do one, but again, for the sake of the math, I'm gonna say 3. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that I add 10 people. Now again, I assume all 10 of them are blue, but if we had a crystal ball and could see, we would find out down the road, 7 of them weren't, 3 were. So I add 7 red, which again, I wouldn't intentionally do that, but let's just say that's what happens. And I add 3 that are blue, or which represents they're going to use me. So I'm at 53%. Now, look at what happens though, is now I have 110 people. This is where you're gonna start to see why the magic of a closed system. So I have 110 people. Now, let's look at that for a minute and say, and realize, so at the end of that week or month, however, whatever it was that I put in these 10 leads, what just happened is my work went from 100 people to 110, because you're going to see here in a little bit, there's going to be some work that goes with this. Not a lot, but some. So my workload just increased by 10%. I just got 10% more work to do, and look at what happens here. If we pulled out the calculator, this is going to end up, I can't remember if it's 49 or 48. I'm just going to say 48. So my reds, nope, I did that backwards. Sorry. This is 48. This is 52. So look what happened. My workload went up 10% to get 2% less here, or 2% more of people that are not going to do anything. So my workload went up 10%, my productivity of deals went down 2%. Now the number went up, but the efficiency of it went down. You follow me? Okay, so what's protocol number 1 though? Closed system has to be fixed in size. So for the sake of our instruction here, we're going to say 100. In reality, you want it to be 2. So I can't have 110, I can only have 100. So what do I got to do to fix it?
Get rid of 10.
I got to get rid of 10. Should I get rid of any of the 10 blue? No. So instead what I do now watch how powerful this is. So now I get rid of 10 of these, so I'm now at 47, oops, not percent there, but well, it is percent still, that's fine. And 53 here still. So now, because I did that, my workload stayed the same now. I'm still at 100. So I have the same amount of work next month that I had this month. But look at what just happened here. This went to 53%, this dropped from 52% to 47%. So can you see, now watch this. Let's say the next month we do it again. Only this month, just to make so we don't have to keep doing math for a long time, instead of saying 3, let's reverse it. Let's say this time I add 10, and for whatever reason, it was a really good open house that I did, and I picked up 7 blue and only 3 that are red. So now I'm at, oops, That should be 60. So now I'm at 110 again here, but I can't do that, so I have to get rid of 10. So which 10 should I get rid of? Red, right? I don't want to get rid of blue. So now, look what just happened the next month is my work stays the same. I'm at 100, but now I'm at 60% blue or green, however we want to do it, since we're pretending it's green, 40% red. What's going to happen if every month I keep doing that? Adding people, and it doesn't matter what the number is, as long as I add people to it and get rid of that same number in red, what happens over here?
How do you know who to get rid of?
That's going to be one of the protocols. So I'll show you that. So at this point, I just want you to make sure though that you can see if I keep doing this, eventually what should happen? It won't, but what should happen?
You should get up to.
I should get to 100%. Yeah, right? I should get to where all 100. Now, I will tell you that's never going to happen. Now, the reason it's never going to happen, you can get close, but the reason it's never going to happen is some of these people, the blue here, are going to move. Like, I'll give you an example. One of the people that I had in mind that was in this column, she probably referred to me 4 or 5 people that I would help sell or buy every year. Every year she'd refer 4 or 5 people to me. Great, solid person here. Calls me one day, we need you to come sell our house, we're moving to Idaho. Well, I just lost one of these now because she moved out of the state. So now all of a sudden this site actually dropped. So when that happens, so just know that's going to happen. Now, I have had people too that are in this column that refer a bunch of people and then kind of one day go, why am I referring to Russ? I should just go get my license. If I look at all the people I've referred to him, if I had my license, I would make some good money. I'm going to go get my license. So some of these people are going to go get their real estate license because they're going to realize they're sending people to you all the time. They might as well go get licensed. So the other thing, some of these are going to die. Like, I mean, I don't want to be like, whatever, crude or gruesome or whatever, but some of them are going to die. Some of them are just going to decide they don't like you anymore or whatever. So you're probably never going to hit 100%. But here's what I will tell you. When you get to 60% is this moment right there. So your objective is, I got to get to 60% as fast as the faster you hit 60%, the more this will move this direction. Now, so that then becomes the question, so how do I know? Well, let's start to work on that. So number 2 protocol. Well, first, any questions on number 1? Is just keep in mind, you cannot have 201, you can't have 199. Anytime you add somebody to it, you got to go find someone to get rid of. If you find somebody to get rid of, like let's just say somebody says, don't ever call me again. Okay, they're red. That's one of the ways you know that they're red. Don't ever call me again. Great, I get rid of them. I got to replace them because I can't have 199. So if somebody says, don't call me again, I got to go find someone to replace them with. Make sense? So the magic in why this works is, and here's the other thing too. It does not matter who you put in. What matters is who you get rid of. It does not matter who you put in. It matters who you get rid of. As long as you're getting rid of people that are worse than who you put in, you're going to win. That's the only thing to it is everybody, I can add anybody I want as long as they're better than one of these. And then I get rid of that one. And I'll tell you how you know that. Don't worry. But that's the magic. As what you're trying to do is just every month have this percentage get better and better and better while not changing from 200. Okay, we good? Okay, so protocol number 2, permission. You have to have permission from all 200. You got to get permission from all 200 of them. Now, here's what permission sounds like. Permission sounds like I have a select group of people that I stay in touch with about real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? So I have a select group of people that I stay in touch with about real estate. So I have a select group of people that I stay in touch with about real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Now, with the people you already know, so there's two types of permission with this. One is going to be when you're calling the people you already know. So if you're calling people out of your cell phone, which I would recommend, I'm going to give you another indication of how you know somebody's read. What you want to do is go to your contacts in your phone, start with the very first person in that list, and you're going to call them and say, so in mine, her name's Karma. So I'd say, hey Karma, this is Russ with, I'm not going to tell her who I'm with because she would know who I am if I call her. If I say, hey Karma, this is Russ, how's it going? She's going to say, good, how are you? And I'm going to say, great, hey, I just had a question for you if you got a minute. Yeah, sure, what's your question? Well, I've decided for 2026, I want my real estate business to be primarily referral dependent. Now, if the person you're calling doesn't know you're in real estate or you're not sure, start it with, hey, I don't know if you heard or not, but I got my real estate license. And if you had it for years, you could say, I don't know if you knew or not, but I've been selling real estate for the last 10 years. Like, it doesn't matter. Either I just got my license, I've been doing it for 10 years or somewhere in between, or 20 years, doesn't matter. But you're going to say, I want my real estate business to be primarily referral dependent. So I'm putting together a select group of people, notice it's the same, that I stay in touch with about real estate, and I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Yes. Now, the other thing you could say is you could call them and say, hey, I got a question for you. If you had a real estate need, who would you call? If you had a question about real estate, needed to buy or sell, or you heard of somebody thinking about it, who would you call? And if they say, well, you, then that's great. If they say, oh, my brother, then they're probably red. Okay? So you're just going to start calling through your phone, and I'm going to call. Hey, Karma, this is Russ. You know I sell real estate, right? Yep. Well, I just decided I want my real estate business to be primarily referral dependent. Like, I want to work with people I like. And you're one of the people that I like, and so I've just thought I should call and talk to you to see if you would be interested. I'm putting together a select group of people that I'm going to stay in touch with about real estate. Would that be okay if I add you to the list? Well, what does that mean? Basically what it means is I'm going to send you an email once a month, and I'm going to show you guys this. I'm going to send you an email once a month, and then I'm also just going to touch base with you. And depending on the person, I'm either going to say once a month or once a quarter, or every other month. So somebody like that, I'm going to say, and then I'll just give you a call once a quarter to see if you have any questions, if there's anything I can help you with in terms of real estate. So no pressure. Like, I do not want you to feel pressure. In fact, if you ever do feel pressure, just tell me, hey Russ, I feel like you're trying to pressure me. Like, I don't want you to feel that way. So if you ever do, let me know. Great. Okay, I just got permission. If it's somebody I don't know, that's where what we talked about earlier, you're prospecting on two parallel tracks. So if I'm calling an internet leader for sale by owner, expired, knocking on doors, I don't care what it is, open house. Hey, I'm trying to set an appointment first. If I can't set an appointment, or I've asked 3 times and they've said no, then I say, I've got a select group of people that I stay in touch with about real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Yeah, sure. Okay, what it means is I'm going to send you an email once a month, and then I'll give you a call. Now, if I met them at an open house, I'm going to tell them I'll just give you a call once a month to see if you have any questions. Now, the reason, if they're at an open house, remember we talked about before, within 6 to 9 months, they're going to be doing something. So if it's from an open house, I'm not going to wait 3 months to call them. It's going to be monthly, because 6 to 9 months from now, they're going to be doing something. Which, by the way, a great group of people to add to this sphere of influence is internet leads and or people from open houses. People who raise their hand. For sale by owner, expired, any of those. Now, for sale by owner, expired, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to add you to that list, and I'll give you a call every couple of weeks, maybe even, and maybe even weekly. But I just want to get permission from every person in there, okay? Now that I've got permission, we can go to protocol number 3. Protocol number 3 is you have to have contact with them 1 time per month via email or mail. You can do a combination, one or the other, or some of one, some of the other, doesn't matter. Mail or email. Preferably, I'm going to do email, and I'll talk to you about that too in 1 second. And I need to have personal contact with them one time per quarter max. Like the furthest out you should go without talking to them is a quarter, 3 months. But like I said, as soon as you find out there might be doing something real estate related, I'm gonna switch that to month, maybe every other month. The closer it gets to when they would be doing something, I'm gonna go from quarterly to every other month to monthly, to then maybe every other week to then weekly. Like the closer they get to doing something, and you'll know. Like I said, if I met somebody at an open house, man, I'm calling them every month minimum, or maximum. The most I'm gonna go is a month. So that's protocol number 3. You gotta send them something in the email or mail and contact at least once a quarter. And because you have permission, you could send them a text, you could call and leave a message. Like it doesn't matter, but here's the key. They need to respond to your text or message. And if they don't, then they might be read, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, let me get you through this. So here's what I recommend for your contacting them once a month. In terms of contacting them once a month via mail or email, is we have through Century 21 the CRM, and we've got Moxie Engage. So here's what I recommend you do is with Moxie Engage, what I want you to do is get them set up on neighborhood news in Moxie Engage. So you want to get them set up on neighborhood news in Moxie Engage, and then what's going to happen is that's going to send them an email once a month for the area they live in. So you're going to set the boundaries for where they live, and I'll show that in a different class, in a Moxie class, which I need to get scheduled. Maybe I'll get that on the schedule for next week or the next week. But anyway, I want to send out to them the neighborhood news, and I'm going to set it up based on their neighborhood. So I want to talk to them on the phone to find out what they want that to look like. Then once a month, Moxie Engage is going to send them neighborhood news. It's going to send an email from you letting them know, here's what's going on in your market area. And here's the cool thing. Of all the people I have set up on that, I have had very, very few, only a few, like 2 or 3, ever unsubscribe from it. If you don't get permission, are usually going to be the ones that unsubscribe. But if you get permission and you set them up on that, they generally enjoy the information and appreciate it. So get that set up so that once a month it sends them that, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Then all you have to do is set a reminder for yourself to contact them. Again, if it's just somebody from your phone and they're like, yeah, we would refer to you or ask you questions, but we aren't thinking of doing anything, great, call them once a quarter. But if all of a sudden they start asking questions, now you go to, I'm going to call them every other month. And then if they really are interested, I'm going to call them monthly, and then it's faster, more often. Makes sense. Questions on that? Okay. Protocol number 4. I feel like I'm forgetting to tell you something though, on one of the protocols, but I don't know what. Guess not. Okay, protocol number 4 is this. Look, man, even this red marker doesn't work great, and it's supposed to be a new one too. Look for red. So protocol number 4 is this. Now here's the thing, here's the key. When you're calling these people once a month or a quarter, right? And maybe once a month too. But as you're calling these people, the purpose of the phone call is counterintuitive. So it's the opposite of what you would think. You would think naturally that the reason that you're calling them is what? Why do you think you'd be calling them? Naturally. What's the natural instinct to, I'm going to call them for, hopefully you say, because I've been pounding it all week, set an appointment, right? But it's the opposite of that. You're not calling to try to set an appointment with these people. I want to be really clear. You're not calling to try to set an appointment. I'm calling them to find out who I never have to call again. Remember over here on this die that I put these stickers on? I'm trying to find out, when I say look for the red, I'm calling to figure out who should I get rid of? Who should I put a sticker on, basically, so that I don't have to call them anymore? See, the purpose of that sticker is I don't want to roll that number anymore. So the figurative way that I'm calling these people is so I don't have to call them anymore. So I'm calling to find out who the red is. Now, here's what the difference of that is. If you're calling trying to get somebody to either refer somebody to you or to list their house with you, if that's your objective, when you call, if they actually are red, you aren't going to notice. And it could be partially because you don't want them to be red. But if you're calling looking for the red, you're trying to call to find the people who are not going to refer business to you, not do business with you, so you don't have to call them again. So when I'm calling, I'm really paying attention to how engaged are they in talking to me. So remember I said it's okay to text and but they gotta respond? Well, if I send a text that says, hey Joe, this is Russ, just checking in to see, are you getting the emails? Do you have any questions? Is there anything I can help you with in terms of real estate? If they don't respond, if you're looking for green or blue, if you're trying to look for the people who are gonna do something, if they don't respond, you're gonna be like, oh, well, guess not. But if I'm looking for the red and they don't respond, I'm gonna be like, I wonder if they're not responding because they're red. Now, that doesn't mean I'm gonna drop them right then, but the next month or the next quarter, especially if you're contacting these people quarterly, if they don't respond, you should be a little concerned. So the next quarter, I send a text again, or I call. Either one. If I call and they get a voicemail, same thing. And I leave a message. Hey, this is Russ. Just checking in to see if you had any questions, anything you needed for or as far as real estate goes. Give me a call back and just let me know. If not, it's not a big deal. Just curious if you had any questions or anything I can help you with. Or if you know of anybody thinking of buying or selling, you could say that too. If they don't call you back, they're now like, you're kind of getting a little suspicious, okay? So let's say a third month goes by or a third time frame, whatever it is, and it's now a third quarter, and they haven't responded to me still. If I'm doing it quarterly, on that third time, I'm gonna send them a text that says, hey Joe, this is Russ. I got a quick question for you. When you have a minute, give me a call. Or you might even say, I've got a really important question. Say that instead. I got a really important question for you. Give me a call when you get a minute. Now, if they don't call you back from that, or whether you leave that as a text or a voicemail, either one's fine. But if you send that, if you say, I've got a quick question a really important question for you, give me a call, and they don't call you, what are they telling you? They're red. Like, but again, if you were trying to find somebody that was blue or green, you're gonna not wanna get rid of them. But I wanna get rid of them because again, who you add doesn't important, it's who you get rid of. You gotta get rid of the people that aren't doing anything, but because it's a closed system, I gotta replace them. And anybody you replace, like if they're not responding to you at all, or let's say they unsubscribe to your email, they're red. And you should be like, yes. See, what I want you to think is you should be excited. If somebody unsubscribes, don't be disappointed. Be excited. If somebody says to you, you know what, I don't want to be part of this group anymore. Instead of feeling bad, go, yes, I just figured out somebody that's not going to do it. And anybody that I put in is going to make my system better and stronger. That's what I want you to see from this. That's why I was showing you, the more you get rid of the red, because remember, it's hard to get people to tell you the truth. So the more I can get rid of the ones that are not going to refer to me, anybody I put in there is going to be better. And oh, by the way, let's say I get rid of somebody that's not going to refer to me and I replace them with somebody who's not going to refer to me. No harm, no foul. Like nothing changes. Like I got rid of one and I added one and that person, it wasn't going to end up sending anybody to me either, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter because I'm no worse off. What you don't want to do is get rid of the ones that are going to. And you don't have to worry about that if you're, like I said, if they're going to and you send them a text, hey, give me a call, I got a really important question. Now, typically, since you guys aren't asking me the question, I'll answer it anyway. Typically, somebody will say, well, what's my really important question if they call? So what do you think my really important question is if they call me? Here's what it is. my really important question is, I'm just basically going back to permission. Hey, thanks for calling me back. I just wanted to find out, are you getting value, or first, are you getting the emails? Yes. Are you finding value in seeing those things? Yeah, it's pretty cool to keep an eye on. In fact, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, did so-and-so's house really sell for that? And I'm like, yeah, I think it did, whatever. So then I'm gonna say, okay, great. Well, I just wanted to make sure that you're still good with me staying in touch with you. See, again, if you want people to be blue or green, if you're wanting them to be that, you would never say, hey, I just want to make sure you're still okay with me staying in touch with you. But because I'm wanting to find the red, I'm great with saying, hey, I just want to make sure you're still good with me staying in touch with you. Because if you're ever not, like, just let me know. The last thing I want to do is be sending stuff to people and calling them if they don't find value and you don't care about it. No, I like it, you're fine. You know, I don't always respond because I just don't have any questions or I don't have a need. Okay, well, if they just told me that, I still am gonna file that away because there might come a time that I have enough good referring people in there that even though he hasn't asked to not be in there, let's say I went 2 years and he never sent me a referral, I might be like, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of him and get somebody else in there. You don't have to, but I might want to. So you get to decide this. But the key thing is, as long as you're getting rid of the people who aren't going to do anything with you, doesn't matter who you put in, it will get equal to or better than you have it. That's the key. Okay, now, next piece of this, unless you have questions. Okay, so watch this. So remember I said that once you hit this point is when you've got 60% of the people that are in there. When you have 60% of these people and they're going to either do business with you or refer it to you. It doesn't matter to me. In fact, in a lot of ways, I would prefer to have all 200 be people who never buy or sell with me, but they refer 3 or 4 people to me every year. Like if you want to know the ideal scenario, build it to where, it doesn't even have to be that high, build it to where you get 1 referral from every one of these people every year. Like if you got 1 out of every one of these people, that's 200 leads every year. That'd be awesome. But I'm telling you, if you get to 60% that will give you a lead or refer business to you, watch what happens. So if I had 60% of that, that's going to be 120 referrals that I get. Now, is every time somebody refers somebody to you, or is it going to work out? No. You're going to have some that when they refer you, call them up and they're like, oh, I have to list with my brother. Or they say, oh, my job fell through, never mind, it's not going to work out. Like, you're going to have a percentage of those that do that. So let's just say, which I don't find this being the case, but let's just say 50% of those are going to fall apart. Like nothing's going to come of it. Well, then now, so that's 50% of that. So now I'm at 60. Are all of the ones that you work with and get them to sign a buyer broker or an exclusive right to sell, not every property is going to sell and not every buyer is going to actually follow through and buy. But I will tell you, if you go around and ask agents, so in fact, actually, I'll just kind of ask both of you. So Jeff, if you can type in the text box, because I can't remember how long you've been licensed, Jeff. I think it's been a few years, but can't remember. So what I want you to throw in the text box though is, and for you, Alicia, you've done a transaction, right? One. Where did it come from?
SOI.
Okay, so how many referrals have you gotten from your SOI?
None.
Well, 1 at least, right? So you've gotten 1. So notice though, she got 1 and it closed. So there's 100%. So Jeff, I would love to know from you too, how many, just like, and you don't have to give an exact number, but like, how many deals have you done and how many of those were from SOI? And then I would love to know too, like from those that come from your SOI, what percentage of the leads turned into a deal? Because I'll bet you it's way higher than 50%. Like for Alicia, it's 100%. 100% of the leads you get turn into a deal, right? So, but I'm just gonna say, just for the sake of let's just say 50%, okay? So let's say that 50% of those 60 turn into a transaction. So if that's true, let me see if I still keep getting thrown off if Jeff's typed in there or not. So if 50% of those turned into a deal, that's gonna be 30 deals a year. Now, and here's what I'm telling you, is if you really got 60, you're gonna be more like 75% or 80 are gonna turn into a deal. Like, in my experience, like every time I talk to agents, like the majority of the time, a referral turns into something. But let's just say 50% don't, okay? Well, that's gonna be 30 deals a year. If we times that by, and I think our average commission might be a little higher than this, but let's just say it's a $10,000 commission. I mean, it's gotta be higher than that because, well, gross commission. I'm talking gross commission, so I'm not talking take home. But really, our average sales price is probably 500,000, so it's really probably 15,000, but we'll be conservative and say 10,000. So basically, a little over a $300,000 home and you get 3%. $300,000, and all you have to do is get 200 people in the system, get permission from all 200, send them an email once a month, contact them at least once a quarter, if not more, and then when you're contacting, figure out who's gonna refer and who's not. And then what you wanna do, in fact, I would say part of the problem that I see most agents have is they don't get rid of the red fast enough. They hold on to people too long. If you wanna get this up and running quicker, figure out the red quicker and get rid of them. As soon as you figure out somebody is red, get rid of them, and anybody you replace them with is gonna be better. But can you see, if you had 200 people in there and only 60% of those gave you a referral, that would be 120 referrals. If only 50% of those referrals turned into a meeting, would be 60 meetings in the year. So we're talking what, 5 a month? And if only 50% of those turned into something, you're talking 30 transactions. So don't do what I just talked about. But for real, can you see though now, oh, we're at 3 o'clock, it's time to wrap up. Can you see how this would work? Like, can you see how the math of it works is as long as you keep getting rid of people who are not doing anything for you, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're not referring people to you, anybody you replace them with is better. And over time, you want to just get it loaded up. Now, one quick story and then we'll be done. I had an agent who decided, I am going to build 200 people and I'm going to build all 200 of them as people who are hand raisers. So either internet leads or in open house leads. And he said, I'm just going to get 200 people in there and stop and think about it for a minute. He said, I'm going to get 200 people in there that have raised their hand. So they've either shown up to an open house or they signed up on a website and said, I'm interested. Then, when you talk to them though, when they show up to the open house, you either set an appointment or tell them, I got a select group of people that I stay in touch with. I'd like to add you to that list. That'd be okay? Yep, okay, great. And then you get their information and out of it. Same thing with an internet lead. They're going to do something. In fact, let me even add another story, sorry. But 2009, I went back on internet leads that had signed up in 2008 to figure out how many of those people ended up doing something real estate related. And by the way, I was only calling leads that were people that said, that the agent determined within 7 days that they're no good. So I didn't call leads, internet leads, that agent said, oh, this is a good lead and stayed in touch. I called them within 7 days, the agent said, no good. When we called a year later to find out on those, 50% of them had bought or sold. 50, and that, remember, this is the leads that the agent said were no good. I'm not talking about the ones that agents worked. I'm talking ones that quickly an agent said, they're no good, forget about them. Versus if they would have just said, hey, I got a select group of people that I stay in touch with, I would like to add you to that list, would that be okay? Yep, okay, great, capture them, put them into this database of 200. Now, especially if you're doing open houses or internet leads, or it doesn't matter, door knocking, for sale by owners, whatever it is. But I like the hand raisers. For sale by owners, expireds, internet leads, anybody that has said, yes, I'm thinking about it. If you can get those people in here, get permission to stay in touch with them, then stay in touch with them like we talked about, But then every time you're calling them, so again, if it was an internet lead or for sale by owner expired, open house, I'm calling them once a month. And the once a month, hey, do you have any questions, anything I can help you with? Hey, just know I'm here if you need me, and if you hear of anybody, let me know. But then, especially if you're doing a lot of that, you're gonna get to 200 pretty fast. So then, all you're doing now is figuring out, of the 200 I got, which ones do I wanna keep and which ones are not responding. Because some of them, you're gonna be 3 or 4 months down the road, they've never responded, but you're at 200, they're out. I'll replace them with somebody that will respond. What's gonna happen is you create this system that will then turn into this. And especially if you've added hand raisers. So I had an agent that said, I'm gonna only add people that were like that. Well, what happened, and I didn't know he had done that until this was happening. Like he was all of a sudden doing 4 deals in a month. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he said, I'm just doing exactly what you taught me here. And I said, oh, well, that makes sense. And then he said, but I did one tweak. And I said, what's that? He said, rather than adding people from my phone, which I still think you should, but he said, rather than adding people from my database, I just created a database of 200. He was doing only open houses. He said, I did open houses, and every person that came in, if I couldn't get an appointment, I added them to this. And he said, 6 months down the road, now they're all ready to buy. So it's just, I'm like, that was a great idea. So that's where I got this idea of, like when I first started teaching this, I taught it as go to the phone book, rip out the Andersons, and take 200 Andersons and start calling and asking for permission to stay in touch with them. Now, I don't do it that way. Instead, just build it up to 200, either through your own phones, people that are in there, which I think you should do. The other reason I say I think you should do that, if you do the other, it'll work, but it's gonna take longer, versus if you call the people in your phone too, I promise you, if you call through 200 people in your phone, if you only have 100, call 100, but you'll find a deal. By the time you get through calling the people in your phone asking for permission, a deal will be there. Promise. You'll call somebody and be like, hey, just calling, I wanted to find out, I'm putting together a select group of people, blah, 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 do you know, I want to stay in touch with about real estate. Well, I actually do know, my niece is trying to buy, or she wants to buy. Great, give me your information. Like, you will come across the deal calling the people from your phone. If you don't, this will still work. If you wanted to build it without anybody, because sometimes people will say, well, I just moved here, I don't know anybody. Great, build it off the other way. Just know it's going to take a little longer before it really takes off. So, questions? You made it. We're done. Unless you have questions. If you have questions, we'll answer them, but I've gone over time and I apologize. I hate doing that. Any questions, Jeff? Guessing he's either doing something or can't respond for some reason, so anyway, either way. Okay, well, do it. If you will do this, it will work, and I will help you stay on track with it, but you gotta just decide, I'm gonna get to 200 as fast as I can, get rid of the reds, do this other pieces, and you will see that.
I need help with Moxie.
Okay, that's fine, yeah, I'll get something scheduled, but in the meantime, if you want it, even tomorrow, we could probably look at it. We could sit down and look at it.
Okay.
So, okay. All right, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It's been fun for me. Hopefully it has been for you too.
It has been very, very good.
Good. All right, see you later, Jeff.